Good evening and welcome back to Tuk-Tuk Travels. I'm sorry it's been so long since my last post, but things have been rather up in the air of late and it's just taken me a long time to get around to it. But in today's episode I shall be talking to you about my orientation week in Pattaya and then the following week I had in Bangkok. So, to begin with, before I could start working as a teacher, I needed to pass an orientation week. This was a series of lectures on not how to teach, but how to act around children and how to act in a Thai school. It encompassed things like Thai history and Thai language, and a lot of Thai culture. So it was all very interesting to learn, but perhaps a bit overdrawn. I spent 5 days, 9 till 5, in this freezing cold lecture hall, listening to lectures that should probably have lasted about 20 to 30 minutes, but dragged on for well over an hour. The hotel we stayed in was relatively nice, and my room had a view over the sea, which was quite pleasant. I'd have my showers in the morning. I literally just walk dripping wet from the bathroom to the balcony and sit, waiting for the heat to dry me off as I watched the sunrise and the boats saunter on past on the water. It was very nice. They have this one thing which is like, imagine a jetpack that blasts air onto the water so you're flying. It was fantastic and I really wish I'd had a go. Unfortunately not. However, yes, these lectures were interesting but tediously overdrawn. But when they were finished, my friends and I, we went either to the beach, just spent most evenings with a can of beer and dinner, which is very pleasant, although the bugs do eat you alive, which is never fun. And on one occasion we went to the famous walking street. Now, walking street is the Khao San Road of Pattaya. It's full of all the sleazy bars and cheap drinks, although really not that cheap. But it was interesting, we went out there and I met my first lady boys, which I'm ashamed to say weren't very ladyish. In fact, they were probably more manly than I. I know that's not exactly that hard to do, but still, you expect a ladyboy to at least look like a woman. I suppose have stubble and a big chin. Oh well. But we went to this club, and upon arrival, due to the size of our group, they gave us a free bottle of vodka, which is always nice. All we had to do was buy the mixers. So for about £10 to £15, there's about 8 of us as well, so split that between, it was about £2 each, and we had a full litre of Finlandia vodka, and all the mixes we needed. Following this, we bought another bottle and more mixers, and let's just say it was a very enjoyable evening. It got to the point where I was actually breakdancing on a podium in the middle of the club. Unfortunately, I remember everything. Sometimes I wish I did not. Oh dear. Anyway, so that's basically all that happened in Pattaya. Lectures and beers on the beach. So then we moved back to Bangkok. At the end of the orientation, 90% of the people there were shipped off into vans and sent to their placements. However, there's a group of about, I suppose, 20 of us who were sent back to Bangkok. Of these, about 8 or 9 left the following morning for their placements in and around Bangkok City. However, the rest of us, with no idea of what's going on, were just released into Bangkok for another mini holiday. So, I am quite ashamed to say we didn't actually do that much. We stayed in late, changed hostel many times, and spent the evenings down Khao San with a good beer and some actually quite nice food. The times we did go out, I went to Jim Thompson's house. Now, Jim Thompson was an American architect who was posted in Thailand during the Second World War. After his stay here, he moved back to Thailand because he was fascinated by the people and the culture. On his travels around Thailand, he became interested in the way that the Thais made silk. Now, at this point, the Thai silk trade didn't exist. He, however, got quite a few examples of silk workmanship from Thailand and sent them to New York to Vogue. Following their arrival, a lot of the large fashion houses in New York and around the world started ordering silks from Thailand. It is basically thanks to Jim Thompson that the Thai silk trade exists today, which is quite cool. Another little fact for you. Usually, silkworm cocoons are white, but in Thailand, the native silk is actually a silkworm spins a yellow-coloured cocoon, which is quite cool. But anyway, back to Jim Thompson. Unfortunately, in 1967, when he was walking out in Malaysia, I believe, he disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to him, although it's currently believed that it was a hit-and-run accident and he was hit by a truck. However, at the time, due to the rising economy in Thailand and the fact that his sister was murdered not a month later, there's a huge theory going around that the CIA bumped him off in order to slow down the Thais from reaching the US standard of economy. Whether you believe the CIA is capable of such things, Marilyn Monroe, then, well, it's just up to you. So that house was most enjoyable. The following day I went to the malls with friends. Now, these are like the Siam Paragon, the Siam Discovery. These things are like 9 stories high and head to toe with shops. And there's waterfalls in them, or... I didn't go, but a place called Mansion 7 is themed like a haunted house, with all the shops, with cobwebs and spiders. And another one, Terminal 21, is basically themed like an airport, with each of the floors representing a different country. So it's all quite bizarre, but most interesting. On the Thursday, some friends and I went Ayutthaya. Now, Ayutthaya was the old capital of Thailand, going from the 13th century up until 1767. During this period, Thailand had been a constant war with Burma. I think in those 500-600 odd years, there'd been 26 different wars with Burma. However, in 1767, Burma finally breached the walls of Ayutthaya and they levelled it. It was from this point that the capital moved to Siam, what is now Bangkok. So looking around Ayutthaya, unfortunately none of us had made any plans or had any idea what was going on. So we spent the day wandering around, going to a few temples and a very touristy floating market. It was a most enjoyable day though, and on the way back I got to sit in the driver's carriage of the train and then again with my legs over the open rear door. Not exactly health and safety, but a very enjoyable time. For the rest of my time in Bangkok, I really didn't do much. A lot of the time we stayed in late and just walked around visiting temples and revisiting places. Because of my, I'm ashamed to say, quite nerdy knowledge of Thai history, I took a lot of the friends I'd made around a few temples and explained to them when they were built, by whom, and such like that. Which I do make a good tour guide, if I say so myself. On my final day in Bangkok, I met up with some of my friends who had already started teaching. We went to one of the malls, had lunch, and walked around. It was nice to see them all again and to hear their stories of teaching. At this point, I had only just heard that I was coming to Korat, which is where I'm stationed now, and you'll hear much more in the next episode. But it was nice going around with them and talking about what their school was like, what the pupils were like, and what teaching was like. So it was really nice to hear from them. After this, I went back to Khao San, where I was staying, and the rest of us there went out for a few goodbye drinks before waking up for a stupidly early taxi to the AYC office to get my minibus to Korat. So that's about all that happened in those 2 weeks. Much less informative than my previous videos, I am ashamed to say, but I spent most of the time in bed or just wandering around, not doing an awful lot. Hopefully in my next video I will tell you all about my school, which is the Saimit Chokchai in Korat. It is a private school for kindergarten and primary, so I was very happy to get that. All the little kids, teacher Matt, teacher Matt. Cute. But I shall talk all about that in my next video, and I look forward to seeing you all then. Goodbye.